Hi everyone, my name is Sabapati Narayanan. I am doing a series on different types of stories where we have guests share their stories, both personal and business stories. Stories are a beautiful way of communication. It allows you to persuade, influence, and get your point across. It also allows you to express simple joys of life. Today we have with us Mr. Satish Chatnath, who is a founder of LOL Education. So I have known Satish for the last 15 years now. Satish is a multifaceted individual. He's a town planner and has had stints with advertising agencies, corporate setups, and has pioneered multiple startups. Currently, his focus is on education, especially in the grade 9 and 10 segment. He runs an organization called LOL Education. Satish, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. So, Satish, to begin with, okay, so now that I have known you for so many years, when with all your corporate communication background and all that, so why education, and what's a backstory, and especially about this grade 9 and 10 education?
Okay. Everyone, I guess, will go through a mid-age crisis, and I met mine. Okay. I'm in the 40s. So this happened a few years back that I was probably in the race track and I was pausing for a while and asking myself, what am I doing? Is this the bigger paycheck that you want, or you want to do something that is going to where you're going to feel happy about it
Mhm.
and have generally peace in mind, right? So then I decided maybe I should be doing what my heart wants to. So that's when I decided to get into education. Why? Probably even during my schooling days and my college days, when my friends come to me to, in case if they don't understand anything, and we have these group studies. In those days, we call them as group studies, right? So the way other students explain about a particular math concept, for example, everyone thinks, okay, this is what the teacher told, and we didn't get it right.
Mhm.
So when it comes to my turn, and when I say the whole thing, probably I give different examples. I completely take a different perspective on it,
Mhm.
and I keep hearing the feedback from those guys that now we get it, now we understand it better. And there was a time when when my friends used to say, if we don't understand a concept at a conceptual level, let's go to him. We'll ask him to explain,
Mhm.
because he has got a completely different take on it. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So this, I know that this is strength, and so after this mid-age crisis, when I wanted to take a pause and do something that I really like, I thought I should go back to what I'm really good at.
Mhm.
Okay, that's how I thought I should get into teaching.
All right. So you personally teach, or you just work on the strategy and designing of the curriculum and all that? So.
See, I do two things. One is teacher training. So basically, I'm from the creative industry, so I've learned a lot of techniques of how to persuade, buyers,
Mhm.
right? So I tried this technique of using those techniques of persuasion in probably get the buy-in from the students, and I thought that's working. It was really fabulous. It was working perfectly well. Then I thought I should share these with the teachers as well.
Okay.
Okay. Then my first thing was to do teacher training, and I thought, if I'm going to go and teach teachers, and that's like a great reach. I can reach so many students through multiple teachers. Okay. In fact, I've trained almost 3,000 plus teachers.
Oh,
But
great.
down the line, yeah, down the line, when I was doing that, what I was doing was using the creative bit,
Mhm.
and probably helping them to probably relook at their teaching strategies. Why don't you put this? Probably this piece is missing, or if you have a rejig of your teaching strategy, using this as a pillar
Uh-huh.
could help you to teach better or connect with the students better. And that was going on, but that was going on, and for somewhere down the line, I also got a different thought. Why can't I also go to the students directly? That could be better. And that is how, apart from teacher training, I started my own batch
Mhm.
and started teaching students. Okay, I started from grade 6. and
Okay.
grade 6 and grade 7.
Mhm.
And I ensured those that batch, along with that batch, ultimately I wanted to do only grade 9 and 10, but I started this almost 3 4 years back. Now I'm just traveling with that batch,
Mhm.
and that batch is with me in grade 10 now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so but I'll be focusing only on grade 9 and 10 from this year onwards.
All right. So now the fact that you have trained about 3,000 teachers would have given you a lot of insights as to what's lacking in the teaching methodology or probably in the educational system and all that. So that would have also allowed you to evolve your teaching methodology, right? So can you just elaborate a bit about what kind of teaching methodology do you use, and can you also give me a couple of use cases or examples?
Yeah, see what everyone is talking about rote learning, and I also believe that's an important factor where things are not working for students because teachers emphasize on rote learning. And when I say rote learning, I'll try and give you an example. Say if you want to teach students that constant, if you have constant velocity, your acceleration is going to be zero,
Mhm.
right? And if you're going to stop at that, you're going to keep telling the student that if you have constant velocity, your acceleration is zero. That is what I call it as rote learning,
Right. Okay.
right? But if you're going to move beyond that
Mhm.
and probably make the student understand why is the acceleration zero and what exactly is this constant velocity, and can you look for real life examples around you?
Mhm.
Can you just communicate this to your own peer group? Can you make one more student who's probably a little slow learner to understand why is acceleration zero when the velocity is constant?
Mhm.
And that requires for you to break a lot of walls and a lot of mindsets and a lot of hurdles around you. Okay? And then one more factor that I see is the evaluation methodology, right?
Mhm.
They give so much of importance to marks,
Mhm.
and the more the marks you get, you are a better student or more intelligent student. Is what is the mindset that is already developed. Okay, you can go back right to the Brit when they introduced the system. Probably that it all started with them, from that 18th century onwards, and we are imbibed in that so much that we take marks so seriously. And if I have to get better marks, then rote learning seems to be a shortcut,
Mhm.
and it all perfectly matches, and they are sticking with it. I have a completely different take on this. I think it's not just marks that's going to help you. So, for example, you ask someone, um, say for example, let's take a math concept, quadratic equation. If you want the student to explain the difference between what is a linear equation and a quadratic equation in simple English, in such a way that another student from the class can understand it better, that's where your communication is tested. Not necessarily you have to be a point,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So if you're going to explain a mathematical concept in very in a most simple way, giving great examples, probably ideally I would say examples from in and around whatever that is happening around
Mhm. Mhm.
you, right? So in fact, we had in one of our in math classes, we asked them to come up with 10 examples, from real life. Say, for example, how will you explain the quadratic equation? Frame those equations
Okay.
and frame those simultaneous set of equations.
Mhm.
You needn't even solve them,
Okay.
and but can you frame those equations?
Mhm.
And then once they do that, they look around for, what are the two unknowns that I can see.
Mhm.
So for example, I'm in the school, I have a parking lot, then I know that some people are coming by, you have teachers coming by bikes and students coming by cycle. Then how many cycles, how many bikes could be the two unknowns there, right? And if they're going to be very observant with all that, and if they're going to put all this together and form those two equations, then whatever examples that you have in NCRT or any of the RD Sharmas and RS Agarwal, I think it's going to be a cakewalk.
Right. So I mean, this actually brings up two questions in my mind based on
Yeah.
what you said. One is you were talking about the examination or the evaluation and the mark system, right? So that's a problem of supply and demand, right? So you have so much supply and the demand is less. So there has to be a way by which people will have to filter. So the easiest option that's available for people is the evaluation methodology. Maybe the way in which it is done is because of the population that which we have, or is that something that you have some creative ways by which that can be managed as well?
I think it's we are right when you say it's a supply demand thing, but it's skewed towards the supply. You have more supply because we think the green field is the engineering field, right?
Right.
So you would take that, then what happens is, what's the purpose of education? That's a bigger question that everyone should ask.
Mhm.
Now, unfortunately, again, I would blame the Brits because I don't want to blame my own countrymen, right? So they brought the system where you somewhere you think that it's like money, fame is what I want at the end of the day, and parents are also fine with that as long as you will get into a bright career. So what do they mean by bright is well-paying career.
Okay. Okay.
So if you were to peg everything to the money part of it, and then a big life, a big car, big house, then you are going to go for the job which is going to pay you high.
Right.
And what are those jobs? You search for that, you filter it,
Mhm.
and then you ultimately decide, okay, these are the jobs, right? And then parents think this way: how will I get my child to do that
Mhm.
or get into that field? Then what happens is, even though the spectrum is so wide for us, we can get into different fields, we just narrow our choices and we just go to this one particular stream. That could be engineering and medical as of now, right?
Okay.
I think, yeah, yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I think that mindset should change.
I mean, don't you think that shift is already happening? That a lot of
It is
people, yeah.
happening. It is happening to a great extent. But still, if you think, apart from your medical, non-medical, when you say non-medical, engineering comes. The third stream, to an extent, you can categorize as commerce,
Mhm.
and the fourth stream that we have is arts. How many parents are really happy that their kids, they want to do or get into the art stream? I don't think so,
Yeah.
because
So.
they think that's a risky. I don't know why they get that. They want to call that as a risky career field. But if my heart is in the artistic side, then where's the risk coming? He's going to enjoy it,
Mhm.
and probably that's another 20 to 30% of the students who are denied that stream. They are forced to get into these top. I mean, the three streams that I just explained, right? Then it's like more supply in these three streams. Even the commerce, I heard the commerce streams is really hot nowadays
Mhm.
because more people want to get into that. But the art stream, where you are really good, probably you're fantastic, you would be one of the best in India, and you don't even go into that field.
All right. So yeah, you did mention about this example of quadratic equations because I also, when I look back at my school days, I mean, I did integration, differentiation, and all that without really understanding where am I going to apply all of it, right? So, and I used to have those questions those days, but it never got answered. Okay, so I did sail through it, and it took me a lot of time while I got into my college education. That's when I realized the applications of it. Maybe if they had taught us the applications, earlier, we would have appreciated it better. Okay, so that was a thought that which we had. So in your teaching methodology, I mean, do you kind of include the context and the applications before you actually get into the brass tacks of getting them to solve problems and arrive at solutions and all of it? See, because
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
in storytelling, okay, so
Yeah.
we kind of I kind of introduce the context, and I
Mm.
actually tell them what the forest looks like before I get into the
Mm.
details of a tree, right? So that makes it all the more endearing for people, and that makes it all the more interesting for people. So from that angle, how do you do that? So.
Yeah, exactly. See, for example, in grade 10, you have a very important lesson in physics called light reflection and refraction, right?
Oh yeah.
And each session of mine runs to almost 2 hours. So we do 12 sessions for that chapter alone. So that is
Okay.
like, we're talking about 24 hours on that. And for a regular teacher, would be spending that entire 24 hours on telling about what is the NCRT content, and what kind of numericals that you can encounter and all that. But I ensure that I'm spending my first 2 hours in what you very aptly described. How you have to make the student aware that how is this going to be super important for you, and what are the applications, right? And if you can connect that with what he or she is going to do, and how it is going to be useful, not necessarily in future, not even now, right? Say for example, you have chapter called human eye, right? And if the teacher can make a very simple connect, that you have your grandparents or someone in your family who's going to wear the specs, and how do you know that the power of specs is calculated, right?
Mhm.
If you're going to start from somewhere there, and if you're going to take you are going to accompany your grandparent to the eye specialist, and the eye specialist recommending for a cataract surgery, would you go for it or not?
Mhm.
On what basis, or what would be your decision for your grandparent if he or she is too old to take a decision, right?
Mhm.
What would you do? What would be your decision?
Right.
Is cataract surgery safe? Are we talking about replacing a natural lens with an artificial lens,
Mhm.
right? And that's when physics becomes super exciting for students.
Mhm. Right.
If you're just going to just give the numericals and formulas for power of lens and then ask them to do some 100 sums, okay, fine, they will do it. But if you make that connect,
Mhm.
if you make that, ideally I would say, make an emotional connect,
Okay.
right? That's where the story is building there, right? That's where they like the story, and then they see the relevance, and probably learn with a lot of interest.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, you also mentioned about your focus on class 9 and 10, right? So, but even in your journey, if you look at it, you have probably gotten them in when they were in their middle school. Okay, so that's probably the ideal time for them to get their concepts right and their fundamentals built in and all that. So, for instance, if you're going to focus only on 9 and 10, and if somebody comes into the class 9 and they don't understand the concept of shape or size or magnitude of things. So, how difficult or easy would it be for you to get them on track and then make them progress as well as the ones who are already there? Because different people have different abilities when it comes to learning. So, how do you factor in all of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think grade 10 is important with respect to, because they're going to face the board exam, and you have, that's a defining moment and
Right.
all that, right? So you have to get prepared for that. But personally, I think grade 9 is super important than grade 10. I'll tell you why. Because you know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally when you're in grade 7 to grade 9. This is when the turbulence happens for most of the students. Okay,
Right.
yeah, for various reasons, right? Your hormonal changes and everything that's going to happen. But even if that disturbance is going to happen in grade 7, and I see, and also I can give you details of research details saying that grade 9 is where the impact is very high,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's when the slide happens, and it's very, very drastic. People, it's like make or break kind of situation they are in.
Mm-hmm.
They either lose the interest in academics altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's when you're attracted to the opposite sex, and so much of confusion comes, and your brain is developing fast, and it's in influx, and the brain is not able to take the right decision,
Uh-huh.
because that's you're in that age, right? It's not that you're not able to take the right decision. And that's when I think the student needs a great teacher, a teacher who can handhold,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily telling him, I'm going to help you, or you are in, you're in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
But even without saying that, if the teacher can handhold and ensure that you do both, help the student on the academic front as well as on the emotional front,
Mm-hmm.
I think that student is going to feel really easy, and there's the change that the student, or the transformation that the student is going to undergo, will be tremendous, and probably he's going to come back on the level at which he or she can perform.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it could be a downhill for that student.
Right. So you still mean to say that getting them in at class 9 should be good enough for them to follow.
Ideally, actually, I started with grade 6 above, thinking that I should handle them from right from
Right
there,
away.
right? That was my thought. But I want to give an insight here. The parent insight is 6, 7. I know it's nothing. Why we need
Right.
classes? We can manage. Okay, and that's what they think. And 8 also. 8 is when there's little question marks come into
Yeah.
their head.
Yeah.
Is it should I do something else? And 9 is when some parents are thinking it's going out of my hand. I have to do something about it, and probably they have tried certain techniques at home and it's not working.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, can you just give me a couple of examples of your own students as to how did they come in and how well are they performing today?
See, for example, I don't want to give
You don't have to
names.
name. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. There is a student, when she joined me, she was super scared of mathematics.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And probably I thought that fear has come inculcated from, the external source. Maybe, she got not a great teacher, or probably the way the subject was taught to her was not very clear. And she somehow developed the fear factor for mathematics. And when she comes to my class, and we most of the classes we start with a song, right? And that song
Okay.
could be, it could be some of the bands that the students like. It could be from even Imagine Dragons, for example.
Okay.
That sets the mood, and it's not that we play songs during the class, right?
Okay.
So when we start the class, for example, so this is like, somewhere most of the students get a feel that, I'm at the right place,
Mm-hmm.
and I like this place, and I like this person who is standing before me. If you create that atmosphere, then the absorption that the student can do is far far better. And when you absorb, the level of the level you can retain is much higher, right?
All right.
And that's to this student, this girl that I'm talking about. After 1 year, in the second year, she wanted to continue with me, and she started saying that, math is her favorite subject. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great transformation. But if that happens at the psychological level. Now, somewhere you start thinking that this is not the monster that I used to, think, as a
Yeah.
monster, but it's not, right? It's doable, it's
Okay.
possible, and she started liking it. So how will you infuse that interest in someone? So the interest is going to build only when there is a desire. So how will you build the desire? So that desire is going to build only when I see that this teacher is talking that I can relate to,
Okay.
right? So as I think sometime back you were asking, what is your teaching methodology? Where I would probably say, if I have the maximum class size I have is only 12.
Mm-hmm.
Even for that size, I know that there will be slow learners, you have
Yeah.
fast learners, you have people who get distracted very easily, right? So there are, you can put all these students in multiple cups, right? So I normally divide that into 4 cups.
Okay.
So if I'm going to teach a particular concept, I ensure that I cater to all these 4 cups.
Mm-hmm.
One concept, teach it in 4 ways, so that it resonates with all these 4 cups, rather than I have just one teaching technique,
Mm-hmm.
and that is like for the entire pack of students. Some of them, probably one percentage of the students are going to get it. What about others?
Right, right. So that's pretty interesting. In fact, I used to train teachers on using data logger. Okay,
Okay.
so which was used for teaching science and all that. I used to work with a company that was selling data loggers. So I was consulting them on how to train these teachers, and I finally ended up training these teachers. Okay, so what typically used to happen was I didn't know as much science and math as the teachers knew, right? So but my job was to make them understand how to use the data logger for their teaching, not to teach them as to how to teach. But most often than not, I used to use all the startling assertions or statistics, or I have very very fundamental questions. I ask them like, "What is science?" Okay, that actually gets them thinking. So not many people actually come up with great answers. Okay, as to what is science. Or I ask them, to define a circle. Okay, So all of a sudden you ask such a question, and all of us kind of know that what a circle is. We all know the shape, right? So
Yeah.
beyond that, we don't know how to define a circle. So those are kind of
Mhm.
things that it startles them, and they kind of start to get interested in what I was doing, and they start to listen to me instead of asking me a lot of probing questions for which I may not have answers. Okay. So you were talking about creating an environment and the psychological aspect of it and all. How are you managing all that during this lockdown period? So earlier you used to probably have contact classes, right? So now you're doing all of it through video sessions and all that. So how are you able to replicate that?
So, like you said, you are going to ask a lot of probing questions, because you have our bandwidth issues. So I don't ask my students to switch on their videos. So I
Okay.
have no clue that whether they are even looking at or listening, right? But you keep throwing your probe questions every 5 minutes, right?
Mm.
And those probe questions are like, I keep seeing who's responding and who's not responding. So I know whom to call out for the follow-up question that I have.
Mm.
Okay, so out of 12 students, if five students are very into answering them, so I know from the remaining seven, the follow-up questions will go to one of them,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So we take up a very interesting topics. So, for example, how many hours do you sleep? And you have varying answers. They think it is a very you know very very easy question for you to answer,
Okay.
right? And then you connect it to how, in case if you don't sleep well,
Okay.
especially I do this with grade 10 students. If you don't sleep well for that night, how's that affecting your performance or in productivity the next day? How is it actually, is it doing anything to you?
Mm.
You get answers like, I get headaches, I see that I'm not performing well,
Mm.
I get use that as a as a excuse for me not to do things on that day, right? And I push things off to the next day.
Okay.
And when the other students, when I'm talking about that seven students, when they keep hearing these insights from their own peer group, which is so nice, so startling at sometimes, yeah, I also do the same thing,
Okay.
right? And they want to get into that emotional forum, they want to get in and they want to participate,
Mm.
right? So you create that, again, you create that as a teacher, you ask those right questions. Not necessarily always you keep asking about quadratic equations,
Right.
sometimes you can come to something which is so relevant to them, and then you can again tag it to the subject that they are learning, if you
Right.
can keep doing. And I would say the mantra is, if you can have a question for every 10 minutes,
Mm.
and direct, sometimes keep it open, sometimes you direct the question, and then ensure that everyone is pulled in and everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah. So how many students do you handle in LOL, Satish?
Per batch, we take only 12 students. So, okay.
So
And
in essence, how many batches do you have? So
I have only one batch per year. I
per
mean,
year.
for a grade. Okay.
Okay.
So that's 12 students, and I give all my energies to them. So probably I would say they are lucky lot, because
Okay.
you
So
have
what's the plan for scaling? So
scaling. I don't want to do the franchise route. Okay,
okay.
that's for sure. Okay, but probably I will be doing after this post COVID, whenever that happens, right? Probably I should be running one online and one offline batch
Okay.
for the same, G10 and G9. This year I'm doing G8 as well, but next year I'm not. I don't think I'll be continuing with G8.
Okay.
So I want to. So probably I'll get some more time because I'll not be doing G8. So I get that scope to have more batches for G9 and G10.
Okay. All right. So that's pretty interesting. And yeah. So I'm a bit curious about the name itself. So what's the story behind LOL? What does it mean?
Okay, yellow whale. You can break that name into two parts. One is yellow, so the color yellow. Okay,
Oh, okay.
from the yellow, I just removed Y just to
Okay.
have the little bit of
Okay.
curiosity factor to it. So this color yellow stands for knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as if you go, every color has got its own meaning behind it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then whale. Whale is that the sea animal which is considered to be one of the brainiest, okay, the most intelligent animal,
Okay.
arguably, right? So then I thought I'll combine them. So
Okay.
you have the knowledge and the intelligence
Okay.
put together, right?
The knowledge
That's,
and the wisdom. Yeah. So,
yeah, and the
yeah,
wisdom.
probably. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. So, anything else that you want to add, Satish, to this? So,
Yes, I think there is one more thing I want to share, Sabha. See, there are probably what I can relate to what you're doing. I know you're a great storyteller, and you do for corporate storytelling, right? You are presenting the business or the proposition, the business proposition in a great story, so that the clients can understand. And I would suggest if teachers can also take or do the way you're doing. For example, any concept that they are teaching or any of the lessons that they are teaching, if they can storify that,
mhm,
okay, and that involves a lot of thinking, a lot of creative input there. But if you can storify
mhm,
even before you start teaching, okay, rather than thinking how am I going to evaluate, okay, that's a important part. But the first part is how will you storify it?
mhm.
Do you have a great opening for your the each and every lesson that you're going to teach, and then the what it could be the middle part, and what would be the end part of that story?
Right.
And all these three parts, how are you going to relate to the kids?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, let it be. I would see the four things that matter to kids. In my experience, anything to do with sports, music, then you have cinema, and then you have general things that are happening around them. If you can link whatever that you're teaching, let it be the hardest topic, electricity, to whatever that you're teaching, if you can relate to one of these, all those topics and subtopics, I think you are going to get the students attention throughout, and they
Right.
will
So,
learn.
yeah, that you in fact, it's very true because even geometry, right? So, uh, the shapes that which you do. So
Mm,
it's very practical and relevant
mm,
in today's context and in the context at every stage, I would say. So a lot of times people don't make use of that also to bring in the
mm,
relevance as to why they should learn whatever that they are learning. Okay. So there is a difference between teaching somebody Pythagoras theorem and making them understand what is Pythagoras theorem and making them own that learning. Okay. So, for instance, how do you measure the height of a mountain or a peak? Okay, you
true.
can't really take a tape and measure it, right? So, so,
Absolutely.
I mean, the geometrical concepts come into play there. So, not everything can be storified, in terms of education. Okay, but yes, as you said, there are a lot of probing questions can be asked. Okay, so a lot of applications can be brought in. Okay, so a lot of, I mean, it's all everyday objects around us, right? So it has to make sense for all of us. So those examples can also be used. Okay, so wherever there are issues in finding out stories. So that's why I call, an example is a story for me. A conversation between two people is a story for me. Okay, so wherever there is a challenge, there is a story. Okay, wherever there is a conflict, there is a story. So pretty interesting. So it was nice talking to you, Satish. And is there a way by which people can reach you? Do you have any handles?
No, I don't have.
Mhm.
But can I share my mobile number? Is that okay?
Yeah, mobile is okay, or I'll even put it in the comment section. Okay, so you can.
Okay.
I'll probably add your website also into the comment section
Okay,
so
great.
that people can reach out. So when I put this video up, so I'll add it to the comment section. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you, viewers, for watching this video. I request all of you to subscribe to this channel as well as click on the bell icon so that you get notified whenever a new video comes up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Satish.
Thank you. Thank you so much.